Now, let's cross to the States with my very special guest, Adam B. Coleman from Wrong Speak Publishing. Adam, I said earlier in the show that these scenes in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware, must seem a bit like the death of Stalin when everybody's kind of running around and trying to figure out who to go with and who the next leader is going to be and everything like that. We've got all these reports. Biden is still recovering from alleged COVID and reportedly seething in his beach house as all the Democrats try and figure out what is going to happen next. Adam, the calls grow louder, but it seems like he is set to dig his heels in. I know what I think, but what's your take? Is he going to stay or is he going to go?
So right now we're at a point where we're just doing speculation. We're predicting the future. I'm of, I guess, the growing unpopular belief that Biden's not going anywhere.
Thank you. Thank you. This is exactly what I think.
Right. There are a lot of people. One thing I notice is that every time there's a new speculation that someone is pushing him in a particular direction, here comes him or someone within his camp refuting it. And then there was a report that came out that said he's open to considering it, and then the very next day refuting it. So to me that sounds like, I don't know if he's like really willing to go for this. I think a lot of it is reacting obviously to the terrible debate that happened, but the reality is that Joe Biden has been this way for a long time, and I think if he waits long enough, the reality will set in. It's either Joe Biden or Donald Trump. And for the Democrat donors who are upset and think somebody else should go in there and there should be this fantasy, 3 to 4 month election for whoever comes in his place, and they'll just automatically win. The reality will set in that Joe Biden is actually the best person to beat Donald Trump, because most of America would have to be convinced that this new person has better policy and stuff, or even just the people who barely pay attention to politics have to know that there's a new person who is running for office, and that takes time.
Well, how is it that, we've got, and you mentioned the donors, but also the media. So we're seeing this big rebellion against Joe Biden and all of this. Now, all of these people knew. They all knew that he had a problem to some degree or another, and it's all coming out. How much is this rebellion, and I think it's a very anti-democratic rebellion against Joe Biden, how much of that has to do with the fact that all of these guys and ladies were made to look like idiots after that debate, when suddenly the thing that they were covering up for, they couldn't hide anymore?
I think that's partly behind what the Democratic Party is experiencing. And when I say Democratic Party, I'm using that loosely, referencing the media.
Of course.
I
think we get it, though.
Yeah. But I think it's much of the same vein. You have the donors, you have the believers in the Democratic Party, much of them infused into the media as well. You have everybody all at the same time pushing for this man to be pushed out of office, or actually pushed out of for re-election. So I think it's the same motivations, it's the same feeling. They're realizing, one, that everybody sees what we've been saying, right? It's not right-wing propaganda.
Yeah.
We've been claiming that he's falling apart because he's been literally falling all over the place, which is abnormal. He's been stuttering and stammering. He doesn't have a speech impediment that he's always had his entire life. I've listened to this man for years speak. He never stuttered, whatsoever. So the lies are easy to show that this is all true. And I think that the media is, yes, feeling embarrassed, but also realizing that everyone sees behind the veil. And the easiest thing for them to do is try to push Joe Biden out and put somebody else who's younger.
Yeah, I mean, sure, but they don't have any sort of succession plan. And the thing, too, is that they also don't have an answer if they have him step down. I'd love to hear your thought on this. If they have him step down, the great problem is, how do they say, oh, but he's okay to be president? He just can't run for office. I mean, how does that work?
Right. Well, because they're playing off a technicality of they don't think he's capable of beating Donald Trump, right? But they're not saying that he's incapable of running the country, right? So those are two separate things. Donald Trump looks more mentally capable than Joe Biden does. But they're not claiming that Joe Biden is incapable of running the country. So it's that kind of him and a haw in between the two.
I mean, what a state for America to be in, that you've got a president who's basically running the show on a technicality.